we're part of the community. We're part of their lives. We've been there for 15 years. We have weddings, we have wakes. We've lost many great customers, and we help out people that have lost partners that are still in the community, and we, get meals to them. And, it's a privilege to be, part of that.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. There are many neighbourhood heroes in the Australian culinary scene, stalwarts of the community, but also raising the game on what it means to eat out and dine in a local neighbourhood. Alex Kearns is the chef and owner of Glebe Point Diner and Kearns Food. Alex, how are you?
Good, Huck. How are you?
Good, mate. It's been a long time since we've crossed paths, but you've got a real institution in Sydney, a quiet achiever in Glebe Point Diner. How does it feel to know that you've got something so special to a community?
It's great to be part of such a beautiful community. It's a little bit of a sense of responsibility, but it's also an honour to share these moments with our beautiful customers.
How many years have you had the keys to Glebe Point Diner?
So I opened the restaurant 15 years ago. I opened it with investors, and then I now own it outright and have so for about 7 years now. Wow.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there. It's such a tiny little space, but it's a thriving little restaurant. Tell us a bit about the food in the restaurant.
Mate, we keep it pretty simple, and the size of the place makes us keep it simple. There's limits to what we can do. Look, we use the philosophy of buying the best produce we can, and offering it in the most delicious, simplest way that we can deliver it to our customers.
That's how I like to eat.
Yeah. I feel like that's how most people like to eat. Yeah.
You've also got the catering side of thing as well. How do you balance the two, and what's the scale of that compared to the sort of small kitchen you have at Glebe Point Diner?
Yeah, it's a squeeze, so it just slots in there nicely behind the restaurant. Yeah, as in, breakfast and lunch service is generally catering, and then we roll into lunch, dinner for the restaurant. So it's very tight, but we manage.
Well, what sort of things are you catering for?
So from private events to big parties to corporate lunches. Yep, the whole kit and caboodle.
Wow. I want to explore Glebe Point Diner and how it all began and some of the stories along those 15 amazing years. Take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family when you were a kid?
It was everything. It was a big part of our life. So the fond memories of food for me as a kid were the way my mum used to throw dinner parties. She loved it. She was very generous with her time and the effort she'd put into a dinner party. She would often, organise the menu days out in advance. And you always knew my mum was about to throw a dinner party when the dinner table was set, the dining room table was set. It was like she'd do it the day before so that she was prepared. And as a kid, you were like, I'm on. This is it. Mum's throwing a dinner party. There's going to be leftovers. How good's this? And so, yeah, they were the fond memories, and the leftovers were like, I'm talking about after dinner mints and maybe, a wedge of pavlova stuck in the fridge somewhere.
Well, can you give us a sense of some of those feasts? What was she cooking?
Look, it was less about the food. I can't remember the food. As a kid, it was, as a 10-year-old, I can hone into the dessert, like the sugar. I can tell you, like the first time I had a swig of tonic water, I was like, this is delicious. And then that, like 2 seconds later, like, what are these adults doing? This stuff tastes like crap. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was after dinner mints, pavlova, and then I couldn't tell you about the dinner.
Well, when did you first sort of pique your interest in regards to cooking and a potential career as a chef?
Yes, so you get that question a lot as a chef and a restaurant owner. People go, "When did you get into food?" And as a young adult, when I was about 20, one of my sisters had a boyfriend who was a chef. In fact, he was a chef at Bird Cow Fish in Balmain, and I thought it was that. I thought it was the, how we got on and how he'd cook for the family every now and then. And I thought it was maybe this, wore off on me. But my wife points out stories that I tell about my boarding school years. So as I finished boarding. I finished school at boarding school, year 11 and 12, and the first time I went to dinner in the refectory, I walked out. There was this stench of meatloaf, and it was just like I couldn't handle it. It was so rancid that I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this. So I was quite a particular, had quite a particular appetite. Some might say I was a fussy eater. And so for year 11 and 12, I prepared my own dinners for 2 years. Yeah.
What sort of things were you cooking?
Well, what can you cook on a jaffle and a kettle? So, there's lots of toasted sandwiches, lots of 2-minute noodles. Quite simple food, but, for 2 years, as a 17 and an 18-year-old, I made myself dinner for 2 years.
And tell us about the early years as a chef when you were doing your apprenticeship. Who were the really important people and venues that sort of helped carve your path?
All of my apprenticeship. So I did the apprenticeship when I was a bit older, so I didn't start until I was 20. And so most kids were finished by 20. They were you'd start at 16 and you'd be a chef by 20. So I was starting when everyone was finishing. But I loved my apprenticeship. I was so ready to. I wanted to be a chef, so I was just like, give it to me, give it as much work as you can, and I want to work my guts out. And I did. I loved it. So I started off. Well, that's my sister's boyfriend, Paul. He gave me the great advice. He's like, you could go and work at a 3-hat restaurant, or you can go work at a hotel, and you'll get really good experience, but it'll be slow. And you're 20, and so you probably want to learn a bit quicker. So go and find a great neighborhood restaurant, and they're small enough so that you need to learn each section, and you might even do a couple of things each night, and you'll just be able to absorb more quickly. That's sound advice for me. And I started at Darling Mills in Glebe, and I worked there under Andy Davies for a year, and loved it. Everywhere I worked as an apprentice, I have like the fondest memories of. And so then after Darling Mills for a year, I went up to Byron Bay and worked with Snowy at Finn's for a year, which was a blast, as you can imagine. I was a second-year apprentice living in a share house, a 3-bedroom share house with 6 people in it. I think I was earning $400 a week. There was $60 for rent, and do the math, the rest went on beer. Yeah.
Andy Davies and Snowy that you've mentioned have had some pretty significant contributions to the culinary landscape. What were they both like to work for? A
joy. They were great. This is the reason why I'm a chef. So they were professional. They were great. They were knowledgeable. They were generous. They were really generous with their time, really generous with their teachings, and just fun to be around. It was a fun workplace to be in, a fun environment. So it just meant that you would want to be there. And then I should mention that I finished up at Sean's. So after Byron Bay, I went down to Bondi and I worked at Sean's for many, many years. Yeah.
Well, Sean's Panorama is a favourite for many people who love to eat out. Take us into that kitchen. Do you have any stories of what that was like?
Sean, as you've probably met him, he's a beautiful man. He's warm, generous, and a joy to work for. So it was it's just a beautiful environment to work in. Like, can you imagine doing a 12-hour shift? You might start at 10 o'clock in the morning, sort of after lunch service, go and have a dip in Bondi, put a clean pair of chefs on, and then back into the kitchen for dinner service. I was in bliss.
You mentioned your focus is getting great produce and keeping it simple. Where did that kind of start for you as a chef, for that idea of stripping it back and just sourcing great produce? Sean's would be for me, where I learned all of that technique. And it is a process. Like a lot of, it might look simple on the plate, but the technique that goes on behind, and the purchasing and the craft of carving and whatnot, there's quite a detail into it and a cost that goes into it. And so I appreciate that technique and love it. Glebe Point Diner started 15 years ago. How did it all begin, and how did you land on the site? So I was doing the Bondi to Bronte one morning. In fact, sorry, so I should probably backtrack a little bit. I had major back surgery when I finished my apprenticeship. So I had a
disc. I had a slipped disc that wouldn't go back in, and they needed to remove it for the pressure to stop on my sciatic nerve. And I didn't have a moment of like, oh, what am I going to do next? It was like, how am I going to move forward in this industry? So it just goes to show how, when you're into something, when you find what you want to do, it's a joy to keep working. So anyway, I was doing the Bondi to Bronte. I bumped into a mate that I used to work with at Sean's, and he still does. We work next to each other. He has a dress shop in Glebe, and he said, look, there's this cafe. I'm pretty sure they want to sell up. You would do great in there. I know your mum and dad live in Glebe. You've worked in Glebe before. You should come check it out. And the rest is history. It just needed a lick of paint, and away we went.
How different was the original Glebe Point Diner to what we see today?
Well, hopefully the DNA is the same, but hopefully it just keeps evolving. Like, I don't want it to be the same. Like, I want it to be familiar to everyone, and I want it to be the same thing, but I don't want to be the same. I want to keep just enough evolution and enough movement to keep us all going forward.
You had the motivation of the back pain that you mentioned to sort of change direction a little bit. But how different was being a restaurateur and running a business to being a chef?
Very, but if you just don't do it, you just keep being a chef. So if you just, you know what I mean? Just push that to the side and let that do its thing, and you keep being a chef. And then, I do have moments where you slip into a restaurateur and you're looking at all the prices, and then you're thinking, geez, this is somebody else's job. We should probably concentrate on food and let the customers come in rather than, tweaking every dollar and cent.
Tell us a bit about your approach to restaurateuring. I mean, 15 years is quite extraordinary for any restaurant on the planet. What's your approach to running a restaurant and delivering every day like you do? Yeah,
so, well, to the staff first, they've got to want to come to work. So we've got to provide an environment that everyone wants to come to work. It needs to be professional. They need to be learning. They need to be paid well, and they need to be having fun. Not in a taking the piss, but you need to be able to enjoy yourself because it's a sense of occasion for customers. And then that translates into the experience that the customers have. And then we've got to look after the customers. We've got to make sure that they're having fun, that they're looked after, they're getting what they need. And from there, it's just, keep providing delicious food.
From conversations that we've had in the past, I know you spent quite a lot of time in Tuscany. Take us over there. Do you have any stories of what it was like cooking over there?
It was amazing. So, I cooked in a little town called Castellina and Chianti, right in the heart of Tuscany, right in between Siena and Florence. And I cooked with this wonderful lady, Maria Zarro, who is now down at Sean's. She's a friend of Sean's. And I just had the nicest experience. I lived on top of the restaurant. I cooked in a manner that was just, it was simple, it was delicious, and you know what? It was fun.
Do you have any stories about the produce or the sort of dishes that you were cooking over there?
Actually, come to think, I've actually got a pretty good story. So they gave me a scooter. And it was like this thing, you had to pedal it first. So it had its bicycle wheels, pedal and get the engine going, jump on, This thing was, slow as. I've got a massive head, so the helmet was too small, so that thing would just sit on top of my head. And I used to have to drive to Panzano, which was about 10K away from 10K on the way to Florence. And I used to have to go pick up this meat from this famous butcher, Dario. And I never knew anything of him. And I'd pick up the meat, the famous Fiorentinas and his famous sausages, and bring them back. And the local customers, actually on Sausage Day, when they make the sausages on Sausage Day, the locals would go and buy sausages and eat them raw. I know, mental. Anyway, Dario ended up being this famous, butcher. He cooks for Jack Nicholson or whoever, for his Christmas parties. Yeah.
Well, what sort of impact did the Tuscan experience have on you and your cooking?
Yeah, it drums home. It really drummed home. Delicious produce, but really good produce cooked properly, served simply. So, and just make sure everything is seasoned well and don't overcomplicate what is already a fantastic dinner.
Do you have any stories of, over the years of, guests coming in or signature dishes of Glebe Point Diner that sort of really speak of the experience of the restaurant?
Well, I guess one of the things I talked about before about evolution, I mean, when we first started, everyone wanted to order the roast chicken, and I couldn't buy enough chickens and I couldn't roast enough chickens. But in my stupidity or like light beaming, accuracy, I took it off the menu. I was like, let's not do this. Let's take that off the menu and let everyone try all the other delicious meals that are on the menu. And that's the sort of attitude we've sort of had, going through. Like, let's, give the customers, a range of things to sample.
Well, I'm guilty of wanting that chicken dish that you're talking of. Was there much pushback from customers about that?
I don't think so. I think people appreciate that. And in fact, I'm actually thinking 15 years on, I was like, geez, that was a good chicken. And because of the way the techniques have changed in the kitchen, we used to roast the bird whole, in a French technique. And now it's all been sped up a little bit. I'm so tempted to go back in and do that whole roast chicken and relive it. Never say never.
You mentioned about the evolution of the restaurant. Is there a dish or two on the menu that sort of speaks of where Glebe Point Diner is at the moment?
Yeah, the duck at the moment I'm really enjoying. So we're dry aging our duck, minimum 7 days up to 14 days. Just to get the skin that we want on the breast, and served simply with the caramelized or roasted radicchio and pickled grapes. It's very simple, but balanced well with the duck. It sings.
Becoming the hub of the community like Glebe Point Diner has become, I mean, there's a lot of restaurants that have longevity and are around for, over a decade, but how do you create that connection? What is it that you do differently that has created this amazing presence within Glebe?
I'm happy to change. Like, I'm happy to evolve. I'm happy to move daily. Like, the amount of times I come into the restaurant and ask the waiters, like, can't we do something with the table setting? What if we move that table there? Can we fit another chair in there? Or how's that aspect for that customer? And they're like, mate, you've only got 14 tables. Like, how much change can you have? You've got a certain amount of space. But that constant want and need to improve the customer's experience, improve what we're doing, deliver more delicious food, it's still there.
Now that the pandemic is hopefully fading away, what learnings have you taken out of that period?
That we are an essential business. That was an emotional roller coaster. So when I can remember where was I? I can't remember now. But I heard the news that the Premier comes out and says all non-essential businesses are closing. And I'm thinking, we're a restaurant. There's no way we're an essential business. I'm thinking pharmacies, supermarkets, maybe a bank, they'll all be open. But who needs a restaurant in a global pandemic? And then the Prime Minister came out and clarified later, everyone go to work, you can, restaurants you can open, but you can't have customers. Like, we were just living it like at the coalface. And the moment any news would come out, I'd get 14 phone calls from the staff. We're going to have to close, and you had to be that brick wall and going, look, we don't know what's going on yet, so let's just keep going. I'm going to work tomorrow. I expect you all to be there. Let's just keep going. Let's evolve. And so it was an emotional. It was hard. We were preparing for the worst, but there was sunshine at the end of the tunnel. It's not great, but the CBD was shut down, which forced everyone back into their neighbourhoods. And so the neighbourhood community was boosted again, and they all, wanted to come out and say good day and needed a place to come and say hi and get out of the house and have a chat.
Did the impact and that experience change your approach or focus with hospitality?
I don't think so. I just thought, I guess not, because I am just happy to be doing what we're doing, and I'm just happy to keep going. So, I wish it didn't happen. It wasn't ideal. Like, I actually feel for my wife the most. Homeschooling 2 kids, like, kill me now. I was at work. I see ya. I'm going to work somewhere I love being, and you're at home supposedly trying to do your job and schooling 2 kids. Oh my God. Yeah.
You mentioned relationships and building them up over the years. How important are personal relationships you have with your customers? Very.
We're part of the community. We're part of their lives. We've been there for 15 years. We've had customers. We have weddings. In fact, we've got a wedding coming up in February. We have wakes. We've lost many great customers, and we help out people that have lost partners that are still in the community, and we, get meals to them. And yeah, it's a joy to be, it's a privilege to be, part of that.
Do you have any examples or stories of some of the connections that are ongoing with customers over the year?
Well, yeah, there's this one lady who recently lost her partner, her husband, and we provide meals for her. But it's more than that, because often she likes to come up to the restaurant and have a chin wag, or we deliver, and it's that connection. It's someone just there saying, "Hi, how you going?" And do you need anything? And is everything all right? And her just having a moment there where she might be having a happy day or a bad day, and it's it's part of the role of being a long surviving restaurant, I guess.
You've bucked the modern sort of trend to sort of build a really successful restaurant and then multiply them and have multiple venues. You've sort of stuck with one venue and really let it shine for many, many years. Why is that?
Well, I did do a restaurant. I did another restaurant over in Neutral Bay that didn't work out, and I guess there is some hangover from that. But I guess I feel like I'm not an expert yet. So I'm still honing, I'm still trying to get it right. But there's something brewing inside of me. I'm ready for for the next step. I'm ready for a bigger and another opportunity to come along. That I think I could do one more and still hold, what I want to do dear. So yeah, the other thing is, like, at the end of the day, you've got to work out what you want to do. And I don't want to manage people. I don't want to be fielding phone calls from multiple venues going, what's going on? And this is happening. And, I can't be any more than one place at the one time. I'm not good at that. I'm really good at operations on site. I love it. So yeah, I think I could do one more and still have this balance of life where I get to enjoy my life.
Well, you've had an incredible impact on so many people. It's a very much loved venue by many people in Sydney. What do you love about what you do?
Well, I just sort of hinted to the operations. I love all of it. I love the whole thing coming together. I love talking to suppliers. I love putting away deliveries. I'm actually quite OCD with stock rotation. I enjoy doing it. I love the moment of knowing that it's easy for someone to turn up and get that first bottle of milk and know it's the first one that needs to go out. I love putting the wine away in the cellar. I love the right amount of rostering going on. I love the fact that when we know we're understaffed, we get ahead of it and, we double the prep and we keep going. And, at the end of the day, we all enjoy the service and then have a beer and move on. Yeah, I love the whole operations of running a business.
Well, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you today on Deep in the Weeds. Look forward to a potentially other venue, maybe down the track, but please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Good on you, Huck. Thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.